Hey guys, welcome in. Glad to have you. Good to be here. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you being here on a Thursday night. We're going to have a conversation today, guys. And the conversation is going to be about really my story from negative $30,000 net worth to 1 million plus net worth, right? What happened? I'm going to talk about something that this is what I rarely talk about this on YouTube or on LinkedIn or on Facebook. But I thought what happened recently is I got a comment on one of my YouTube videos, and someone asked me, they said point blank, I want to hear more about Smart Money Bro's story. How did Smart Money Bro do what he did? And what did he do? So I said, you know what? Let's do a video about it, but let's do it live. So that's why I said I'm going to come on here and have this live conversation today on Thursday. And I don't really talk about this much, right? But I wanted to have this conversation about my story because I usually leave my story out. And by the way, thank you so much for being here. Art of War, long time no see. Used to come to my lives quite a bit a long time ago. So I appreciate you being here. Art of War. It's been a while. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Let me know where you're coming from in the chat, by the way, so we can get an idea of what cities and states and countries you guys are all in. So, if you have a question about my story, please feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to answer the question for you. So, without further delay, let's kind of jump in here and talk about. Hey, we got somebody from Springfield, Missouri, not far. Good to have you. We got Maryland in the house. We got Atlanta. We got Houston, H Towns here. Sacramento, California. I think they call that what do they call it? The Bay Area or something. We got another Maryland. You got to say Maryland. Can't say Maryland. New Hampshire's here all the way up in the Upper East. Good to have you. Chicago, South Side, West Side, North Side. Not sure. But good to have you here from Chicago as well. We got a Rhode Island person here too. So thank you so much, guys. Here's my story. Let me tell you a little bit about me that I don't share very often, about how I was able to go from a negative $30,000 net worth to a $1 million net worth. Actually, it's more than one. It's almost 2 million. But let me start by just saying this. At age 30, when I was 30 years old, okay, and as you can tell, I'm not 30 anymore. But when I was 30 years old, my net worth was a negative $30,000. I had a college degree. I was a school teacher. I worked hard, did all the right stuff, most of the right stuff. And the year was 2000. Back in the year 2000, I had my 1992 Taurus got stolen because I left it running, silly me. And so I had in the year 2000, I had a 1996 Honda Civic. It was worth about $10,000. Let me just explain to you what my net worth actually was. $10,000 that I had in my car. That was what my car was worth. And I owned also, besides that car, I actually had roughly $10,000 of retirement money from being a school teacher for the last 6 years in the year 2000. That's the $20,000 that I actually owned. $10,000 car and $10,000 in a retirement fund at the state's automatic. When you're a teacher, every state you live in America, you have to contribute to your pension, right? So I had $20,000 to my name, yay! But I owed a whole bunch. I owed $25,000 in student loans that had accrued from 1992 to 1994, and I just hadn't paid them. I deferred them and so forth. So I owed $25,000 on student loans. I owed about $10,000 on the car, 1996 Honda Civic, dark green, 4-door, stick shift, solid little car, right? And I owed another $15,000 on some medical bills and some other stuff, right? So I owed $50,000 as a 30-year-old person. I owed 50,000 and I owned 20,000. That's why I had a negative $30,000 net worth. I was financially behind a lot of you that probably are listening to this right now. I was financially behind a lot of you. I had By the time I was 30 years old. By the time I was 30 years old in the year 2000, with a negative $30,000 net worth, I had built absolutely nothing. I hadn't produced or created anything. That's real. Now, today, as I said earlier, 25 years later, net worth is it's approaching 2 million, right? And I don't say anything, and I'm going to tell you about how all this took place real quick because I want to tell my story here. But I don't say anything that I'm going to say in this video to brag or to boast. That's not the point at all, because I made a lot of mistakes. I mean, I bounced a bunch of checks. I had a bunch of overdrafts. I foreclosed on rental properties, multiple rental properties. I took 31 years to pay off student loan debts. I made tons and tons and tons of mistakes. A bunch, right? But I got to where I'm at right now, not because I was lucky. I didn't get lucky. I didn't hit no lotteries in life, right? Not because started some tech company and, sold a tech company. No, it wasn't nothing like that. Not because of crypto or day trading or Forex, none of that. I wasn't trading stocks. I wasn't doing calls and puts and, none of that. No, trading options, none of that, right? I just changed the way I thought about money, and I did all the stuff that I talk about on this channel. The one thing that I would say separates this channel from a lot of channels is I would say everything I talk about on this channel, I've done and I do. So this is why I can be a little more passionate about this stuff, because I'm not teaching you something or talking to you about something that I watched on YouTube or I got out of a book and decided to go ahead and make a video about. No, everything I talk about on this channel is things that I do or things that I've done in the past. Look, let me put it like this. And by the way, thank you so much being here from Indiana, Pennsylvania. Do I think it's worth paying a mortgage off before investing? No, but we can talk further about that. St. Paul, South Carolina. Good to see you. Arkansas is in the house. We got a bunch of folks in here. Now, I was raised very, very well, but very poor. Let me say that again. I was raised good, but poor financially. See, if you're my age or near my age, you understand that I grew up in a time that just because you were poor didn't mean you had to act poorly. We didn't have money, but we were still taught to carry ourselves well, to act well, to behave well. And we were taught that just because we lived in the projects or in an older, poorer neighborhood, we didn't have to default to acting a certain way or doing certain things just because of our financial situation. Nowadays, people look at somebody in a poor situation and they kind of excuse them for poor behavior. But there was no excuse back then, right? Just because you were poor didn't mean you had to be poor, act poor. So I grew up in poverty, but also at the same time, I grew up with dignity, self-respect, integrity, right? Morals, and a sense that my financial situation had nothing to do with who I was on the inside as a person. Where I was financially growing up did not have to dictate what was possible for my future or what I could become, right? And I think a lot of people have to fight that a little bit. But this is why today I respect, but I cannot give in to the statistics and all of the literature and information that says that just because you're poor, you're stuck and you'll never be anything and you can't make it. I don't subscribe to that because I've been there, right? Your past does not have to dictate your future. And I really believe that. Not when you're a human being who can think and reason and make decisions for yourself. Victimhood is not in my vocabulary. Although I understand, I know my history. When I was teaching school, I mean, I taught social studies, and a lot of what I read today is history, right? But I try to get people to understand that you can be a victor and you don't have to be a victim. I grew up as the youngest of five to a single mother after the age of 10. My parents got divorced, separated, and I had a single mom. And so even before I had a single mom, welfare, food stamps, government assistance, government cheese, powdered milk, had it all, right? The cereal in the white box, all the stuff was in the white box back then. So I've been there. Neither of my parents graduated high school. I didn't come from wonderful two-parent home when all this and all these wonderful role models. That's not my situation, right? Constantly moved a lot, right? We were always on the move. I think I lived in, you know, at least I think 13 different homes, different addresses by the time I was 22 years old. A lot of those places are torn down and dilapidated today, but some are still up. But it was apartments, it was houses, etc. And so, a matter of fact, 13 addresses before age 22, 7 or 8 more addresses between the age of 22 and 30. So I was sort of repeating the pattern of moving a whole lot around, a lot different apartments and so forth, even into adulthood. And so I never seen wealth up close, even into my 20s. Had no idea, didn't have a wealthy uncle or a high achieving, we had some achievers, people that did some things that were honorable and respectable, right? But I had one thing that was unwavering that really played a huge role, and that was belief and high self esteem. I knew from a very early age, even though I was growing up poor, that I could achieve whatever I put my mind to with the help of God, obviously, but I could achieve it, right? I just had this really strong belief. And I didn't grow up around, ownership or doctors or lawyers or none of that. I grew up in a survival scarcity mind frame. And that's one thing I had to shake along the way. A lot of people watching this, guys, when whether you're watching this on replay, you're watching this on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube, a lot of you grew up the same exact way that I grew up, right? You may have never seen wealth modeled. You may have never seen a solid two-parent household or the process of buying a home or buying assets, right? And that's why I tell people on this channel, if you want more, you have to reshape your mind and change your belief system. How you thought about money back in the days from age 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, unless you specifically address that intentionally, you're going to carry that, or you have carried that over to your adult life, right? And I learned, like I said, at an early age, you can't build a different financial future with the same exact financial beliefs that you've always had. It don't work like that. This is why I talk about mindset a lot on this channel. Everything starts in the mind first. People say, you got to have money to make money. You really don't have to have money to make money. Otherwise, everybody that's now making money, like me, we didn't start with anything. I didn't start with money to make money. So you don't have to have money to make money. You first got to have a belief that it's possible to have money in order to start making money. If you don't have no belief, here's the deal. You look at a plumber. If you had to first believe you could be a plumber before you could become a plumber. You had to believe that you could become an attorney before you became an attorney. Why? Because without the belief, you don't try. Without the belief, you don't make the attempts, right? If you don't have the belief, then you don't put in the work that's necessary to become whatever you want to become. So before you get money, let's first work on our mind to how we believe. Do we believe that we're worthy? Do we believe that we can do it? Do we believe that it's possible? Right? Belief is first. And I always had that belief even from an early age. Right? Now, let me talk about this journey a little bit so you guys understand where I'm coming from. I have to give a shout out to my mother, right? As again, my mother was a high school dropout who was an LPN. I think she was a CNA first, but I don't know if they called it a CNA back then, but she was an LPN and got her GED and went back to college in her late 30s, early 40s, and got an associate's degree and became an RN in her early 40s, I believe. So my mother was a role model for me to show me that anything is possible. right? There's no age limit. Some of you are watching this YouTube channel on YouTube, and I didn't start my YouTube channel till I was 51. There's no limitations to what you want and can do. So I go through middle school, I go through high school. I was a smart student, but didn't always act smart. In other words, when I graduated high school, I had probably a 1.8 GPA, 1.9 GPA from high school. Had to take I think my senior year, I had to take history and I took government over in my senior year. I flunked history in my 11th grade year because I didn't like the teacher. I didn't like the teacher. I went to a predominantly black high school, and the teacher skipped over all of the. I remember him skipping over all of the sections of the history book that dealt with past the slavery. He skipped over all of it, but it's a predominantly African American black high school, and he skipped it. I didn't like his class. I didn't like him as a human being, so I ended up not passing the class. Had to take history and government in 12th grade to get to graduate high school. And then I went on to a local community college and I struggled the first 2 years of college. I had a 1.7 GPA my first full year of community college. And I was on academic probation, 1.7 GPA. And that was after 24 credit hours, 12 hours each semester. Not to mention, by the time I was 19, I had a son. I had a child, my first child, not married, but had a kid. But remember, what I told you, I believed from an early age that I could be anything I wanted to be if I just put my mind to it. Now, after going to college part time at the age of 19, 20, sitting out a semester, when I was 21, I made a decision. I saw that I had a sister that was a teacher. So I said, you know what? I think I want to be a school teacher. So I explored what I needed to do to be a school teacher. I had to get my GPA up to 2.5 or 2.7. 2.5 to go to Kansas State University and 2.7 to go to KU University in Lawrence, Kansas. So when I was 21, I went back to the same community college after sitting out a semester. I went back to the same community college that I had a 1.7 GPA, and I got straight A's for 4 straight semesters. Straight A's, all A's. Got my associate's degree and ended up with a 2.55, 2.6 GPA. Applied for the one school in state that I could go to, and I got in that school of education as a junior in August of around 93 or so, something like that. So eventually, I became a school teacher. And I graduated college with a bachelor's degree with 3.3. So no, I don't have a PhD. I'm not a certified financial planner. Don't claim one. But I do have a bachelor's degree, and I became a teacher. And I taught 7th grade for 7 years from 1994 to 2001. That's my resume when I started working, right? But during that time, as I told you before, I was still financially unstable. Right? I remember when I was 26 years old, about 2 years into teaching, there was a guy that came around and talked to all the teachers after school about signing up for an annuity. He was an insurance salesman, and he showed me something there that really changed my life financially. He showed me when I was 26 years old what was called compound interest tables. Back then, these were like real tables that he had laminated. Right? He whipped them out and showed me, if you save this amount for this long, and you put this towards and with this percentage growth, you'll have $700,000 in by the time you're 50 or 60. And then he showed me the other compound interest tables. It wasn't no internet type stuff, right? And those things stuck with me. I signed up for his annuity, paid on the annuity for 3 or 4 years. I ultimately got rid of it. But the education on the compound interest tables was phenomenal. But I was a paycheck to paycheck thinker. I didn't really have any long-term plans for finances. I didn't have an ownership mindset because remember, apartment to apartment to apartment, I never even knew anybody who owned a home even into my 20s, right? So you talk about, can you start later yeah, you can start late. I had to start late. Remember though, by the time I was 30, I was living in an apartment. I had $10,000 of teacher retirement. I had a $10,000 car, $20,000 in assets. I owed $10,000 on that car. It was upside down for a couple of years before that. And then I also owed $25,000 of student loan and $15,000 of credit card, medical bills, and stuff like that. So I had a net worth of negative $30,000 at age 30. I owned nothing that was truly mine. And I thought that was normal because that's how I was brought up and that's how I learned, right? But something mentally changed around the age of 30. I got married, started reading a little bit about money. I started watching the infomercials, late night TV, Carlton Sheets. How many of you know what I'm talking about when I say Carlton Sheets? Right? You got to be over 45, 50 years old to know Carlton Sheets, right? The no money down real estate infomercials where he's sitting on the yacht with his family. Probably was a leased or borrowed lot. I mean, a yacht, right? But he's sitting on there with his family. Well, you can buy real estate too, right? So I started watching all that. I ordered the tapes, not the CDs, the cassette tapes, right? And I started learning about passive income. I said, man, that's pretty cool. I think that was like 1999 or so, 2000. I started learning. I said, wow, this is pretty cool. I started learning about ownership when I was 29 years old. Had no concept of it before that at all. Hey, thank you, the lovely. I appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. I appreciate that tremendously. Somebody said, congratulations. Thank you. You got your education. Absolutely. I appreciate that. Yes, it's going to be on YouTube later. Absolutely. This is going to be a YouTube live video that'll be on YouTube. But I'm giving you all this because I never talk about this really much on this YouTube channel at all. So I wanted to share this information with you guys in a more transparent way in a live instead of just doing a quick video with B-roll and all that. No, right? So we married. Mother-in-law in the year 2000 gave us her small home for $1 on what was used to be known as, I don't know if they're still around. There used to be something called an assumption loan. Some of you guys that work in real estate, you might remember that. An assumption loan where I don't think they had to check our credit or anything. We just assumed the loan that her mom gave us. Her mom had a small house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, all on one floor on a slab. Solid, good start, right? We lived there from 2000 to 2005. But here's what happened. Let me stay with the year 2000. I went out and I started canvassing neighborhoods. I started making phone calls and I looked in the yellow pages to see different realtors in the area. I found a realtor in the yellow pages to help me try to buy my first rental house. Didn't have any money, no money down, $500, $750. I don't know what I had. Ultimately, this realtor owned some property himself. And this realtor ended up selling me after we looked at a bunch of them. I didn't know what I was looking at. I was just looking. And in that same time, let me say this too, this is important. In the same time that I was looking with this new realtor, I trailed a guy who came over and did something for the house that my mother-in-law had just gave us. I found this guy. His name, I won't even say his name, but I asked him, I said, can I trail you? He was a handyman. I said, can I trail you? And you don't have to pay me, but I just want to learn a little bit about houses. You know, I've been watching Carlton Sheets and I said, I need to know something about houses if I'm trying to invest in them. So he allowed me for several months on the weekends to trail him while I looked for a piece of property with the realtor. I would just trail him, right? So he taught me, I didn't even know what was behind drywall, right? But he taught me and showed me, hey, this is how you drop your your electricity behind the wall. This is how you put up drywall. This is how you look at plumbing. This is how you put up a ceiling, right? Using a fulcrum. This is, in bathrooms, they use green board instead of regular drywall because it's moist in the bathroom, right? How does a tub go in? What is flooring? What's underneath I didn't have any idea about joists, about gutters, fascia and soffit and roof lines. I didn't know any of that stuff. But he began to teach me these things on weekend. I told him, don't pay me. I just want to learn. So lo and behold, the realtor found me, he sold me, agreed to sell me one of his houses, right? It was a raggedy, I'm gonna be honest with you, because it's torn down now, right? It tore it down about 5, 10 years ago, but it was a raggedy 2 bedroom, 1 bath house in the worst part of the city. It was 75 years old. And I remember cleaning up some stuff up near the attic, and some old paper fell down from the attic, and the paper was like it had 1933 on the newspaper. I said, "Whoa, this house is pretty old." Anyway, so lo and behold, it was an old 2 bedroom, 1 bath, and it had a squatter in it, right? And the squatter was like 6'4", right? He was a big old dude, right? So my very first rental property, I had to get a squatter out the house before I could even get in the house to actually try to fix it up. I had to find somebody to help me fix it up. And I remember working with that squatter, right? A big dude, right? So I'm working with the squatter and trying to get him out. Okay, all right, I'll see you. I try to be cordial. Eventually he leaves and I start working on the property. The first person I get to help me out on the property is somebody I found at Home Depot. And lo and behold, we talked, exchanged information. He came and looked at the property, and he ended up stealing like $500 or $600 worth of Home Depot's, doors and stuff from me, like a month into the work we were doing on the house. I had no money. I was bootstrapping this thing and just flying, just doing what I could, right? We had to tear down a wall. We had to rebuild some of the kitchen. It was rough. It was rough. And after him, in the year 2000, end of 2000, I picked up another guy who was working on a house. And that handyman guy I picked up in 2000, 26 years later, I still work with him. Good guy. But my first few experiences with property was rough. I thought back then that my path to wealth was going to be through real estate. Little did I know that it wouldn't be through real estate. Remember, when I entered the year 2000, at the age of 30, I had never even lived in a home that was owned by somebody I knew. But remember, I also told you that I believed I could do whatever I put my mind to. There was no limitations on my brain about what was possible or what I couldn't do, right? Or what was out there for me. This is the motto I always lived by since I was young. If I see them doing it, I can do it. That's how I live. And it's not to be arrogant. It's just to say that it's just a confidence, and I don't know exactly where it comes from. I probably do know. It probably comes from the fact that when I was younger, I was always told that, he's a very bright guy if he just applies himself, right? I just never I didn't really apply myself till I decided to go to college and get all those straight A's. And then I applied myself again when I wanted to buy rental houses, and I didn't know anything about houses. And then I applied myself again when I went to go sell on eBay. And then I applied myself again when I started this YouTube channel. Get what I'm saying? So, and I learned a long time ago that when you start fighting for your limitations about what you can't do, you get to keep those, right? And they hold you back. And I also, along the way, learned that there's an enormous amount of power in how you think and what you believe and what you say about yourself to yourself, right? Now, keep in mind, my first property didn't make me wealthy, right? I mean, I bought it from him, owner financed for $10,000 in the year 2000. And then I turned around after we put some money into it. I used credit card, whatever I could to put money into it. And then I ultimately refinanced it and paid him off. I think I refinanced it at like $29,000, $30,000 or something. Right? My income back then in the year 2000 was low, right? I think I made $29,000, $30,000 a year or something. I wasn't making a lot of money, but I always had another job. So let me explain just a few important habits that I think is important. Let me just kind of slow down on the story for a second, right? Here's a few important habits that helped me. And these are things I talk about all the time on this channel, and I hope they can help you a little bit. But starting in 1992, as I said, when I went off to college to be a junior in the School of Education, one of the things, I had an apartment, and that was the first time I lived away from home. But one of the things I did was I started doing a budget on a regular basis. And I didn't miss a budget. And to this day, I can safely, strongly, with conviction say that I've done well over 300, whatever the month of August of 1992 is to May this year of 2026. I have not missed a written budget. That's 34 years of written budgets. And for, I would say, the first 10 to 15 years, I would put them on a piece of notebook paper, probably 10 to 12 years. And then after that, I would use those little ledger books that you get from Office Max or Office Depot, whatever you go. Those little ledger, like accountants use the ledger books. I would use those until 2017 when I started putting it on a Google spreadsheet. 300, I don't know if it's 330, 340 straight budgets in a row, monthly budgets. It keeps me in line. It keeps me in control of my money. Nothing fancy, no apps, right? Just my brain and what I spend money on. Also, another habit that I think is important to mention here is starting in 1994, when I was a teacher, I started contributing. They forced me as a teacher to contribute to my pension automatically coming out of my check once a month, putting towards it. And by the time the year 2000 came around, I had about $10,000 in it. So when I went to work for the federal government in the year 2002, I transferred that money over to the federal government's TSP, Thrift Savings Plan. And watch this. I haven't touched it. The same 10,000 from the year 2000, I think it was about 10,700 by the year 2002 that came around. When I transferred it over, that little $10,000 is now $350,000. I never touched it, never took a loan, never did anything with it, just let it grow. Something to think about. Another habit, let me throw this one at you based on what I've done. From 1998 to 1999 or so, I worked as a shoe salesman. I was a teacher, but I had a part-time gig. I sold shoes at Dillard's. From 99 to 2001 or so, I worked as a commissioned salesperson, all commission, at Circuit City. Tell me you remember Circuit City. All right, raise your hand if you remember Circuit City, right? Remember those days, right? You walk in, we had the burgundy shirts on, long sleeve, tucked into the khakis, and we was trying to sell you TV. I worked in TVs. That's when the flat screen was coming out, but it was a real heavy flat screen. So I did that. From the year 2000 to the year 2005, I bought 5 more rental properties. And I held 6 rental properties and managed them on the side for almost a decade. And since 2014, I've only had 2 rental properties, but I've managed them myself and I still have them. And one is paid off and one will be paid off soon. The one that's paid off is the one that was originally gifted to us by my mother-in-law in the year 2000. Paid that off. The other one is going to be paid off in the next month or so. Okay. In the year 2008, I'm still on these habits that helped us. Still on these habits, right? In the year 2008, I worked at Home Depot. In the year 2010, I folded clothes at Eddie Bauer. In the year of 2013, I had no money to send my daughter to college, so I started selling stuff on eBay. Actually started on Amazon. Amazon didn't go well, and so back then, eBay and Amazon were close competitors, right? But Amazon took off. But for about 5 or 6 years, I was big time seller on eBay, right? Sold at this point, I think I sold over $110,000 worth of stuff on eBay in about 5 or 6 years to help pay my daughter's way through college with margins that are around 40, 45%. When I say margins, I'm saying that and 99% of what I sold was shoes. Remember, I was a shoe salesman. So I sold a lot of used shoes and I would get them from everywhere, estate sales, Goodwill, whatever, garage sales. And I would take the shoes, refurbish them and resell them on eBay. Did it for a lot of years, made a lot of money. And that was a big side hustle. And then 2017, 18, I started Smart Money Bro. Here's what I'm telling you about these habits. These are all side hustles while I also worked a full-time job. And this is why somebody one time asked me, said, man, 40 hours a week. We weren't built to work like this. And I'm saying, I've worked like 55 hours a week for the last 30 years. I say 25 years. 50, if it wasn't on my rental property, it was one of these side hustles, right? I still have a job today, still working, doing YouTube on the side. Another habit that helped me along the way, after I'm giving you a bunch of these things that helped me, that helped my story, that was part of my story, that could be a part of yours, is in 2011, I stopped using credit cards, paid off my car, never borrowed money again unless it was on something going up in value. It was on a piece of real estate. Otherwise, I didn't borrow money. Never. Still haven't borrowed any money. Still haven't used a credit card in 15 years, 15 or 16 years. And another habit, I kept reading. I kept learning about money, investing, and growing wealth. And I got really into the money thing, right? I got disciplined. I stayed focused. I learned from mistakes. I became a fanatic about money management and these budgets. And yeah, I wanted to multiply my money and all that, but I had to learn that stuff. I had to learn the stock market, ETFs, index funds, right? But I learned that I could not multiply money that I wasn't managing, right? My wealth, my wealth today is spread out, right? It's real estate, it's the stock market, it's TSP, thrift savings plan with the federal government. It's a lot of different areas, right? But the thing is this, in my situation, my wealth was not built in giant miraculous moments that happened, right? My wealth was built in literally hundreds of small decisions day after day after day after day, right? That's how my wealth was built. That's how I went from a negative $30,000 net worth in the year 2000 to 1.7, 1.8 today. It wasn't fancy. I didn't start at 19. I wasn't, given a trust fund. Although I did get a big help by my mother-in-law, which I'm grateful for, giving us a um a home, an assumption loan, right? But I made mistakes along the way, but I didn't live in the mistakes. I didn't live in them. I didn't drown in them. I didn't get over upset about them, overly emotionally involved and dedicated and married to them, right? I made them. I moved on. So another habit is, for the last 15 years or so, I've done an annual net worth statement that I kind of double check midway through the year. I've kept it on a spreadsheet the last six or 7 years. But this is the same thing I talk about on a lot of my videos. I do at least a yearly net worth statement because I want to measure my progress. I want to measure if I'm raising my assets and lowering my liabilities. I do a budget every month so I can measure how good I'm managing money or not managing money. That's what the budget does. It helps me measure whether or not I'm being a good steward over my financial affairs, right? But I've done it through consistency, through patience, through changing the way I'm thinking and thinking long term. When I got into my 30s and I started buying these rental properties, I started writing down goals and missions and things trying to accomplish. And I avoided a lot of the financial chaos, and I set up systems in my financial life and to get me where I want to go. And management was a huge key. Of course, all the while living below our means as well. But the other thing was taking full accountability and responsibility. Instead of spending time and energy complaining about this and complaining about that and complaining about this, figuring out how I could participate in the economy instead of whining and complaining about the economy, right? How I could be investing ETFs, index funds, individual stocks, my retirement plan at my job. This is all basic stuff. It don't take more than the basics to build a multi-million-dollar nest egg in your 50s. Here's the problem. A lot of people think, well, you must have had a high income. I didn't make over six figures until I was in my late 40s. 7, 8 years ago. I didn't make a ton of money. Some people think it's the luck of the draw from your parents. I didn't have parents like that. My parents weren't particularly good with money. Some people think you got to have the right timing. If you just get in on that stock at the right time. No, I didn't have the right timing. I was just dollar cost averaging for 30 years. No flashy investments, nothing complex. I did have some real estate though. I was diversified. I wasn't only in the stock market. Just patience, ownership, emotionally under control. For most of that time, I wasn't checking the stock market every day, right? I wasn't getting all up. 2008 hit, 2009 hit. And okay, I just kept on dollar cost averaging. It affected me in terms of my real estate. It's one of the reasons all those foreclosures happened back in 2010 and 11 and 12. That affected me because I bought my rental properties wrong. I bought them way over leveraged, right? Buy a $50,000 property and put $3,000 down and didn't have no money for repairs, right? So at one point, for a lot of years, I had 6 rental properties. Yeah, I was bringing home $4,500 a month. Woo, that was big money back then. $5,000 a month, but I was paying out $3,200 in mortgages, and then that's about $1,800 spread. But guess what? Then you have a tenant that don't pay. Then you have a water heater go out. Then you have an HVAC system needs repair, right? Then you have a tenant leave in the middle of the night and leave the place trashed. I didn't have no extra money to cover all those. So I had to foreclose on some properties, right? But the deal is this. Over the years, this is what I learned. Most people don't have an income problem. Most people have a money management problem. People mismanage their life, they mismanage their decisions, and they mismanage their resources. And watch this. A lot of people mismanage the opportunities, right? They get so emotionally involved that they don't understand there's opportunities happening all around you. This is my boring. Let me go back to the chat. Was there a comment in the chat? Guys, you got to do me a favor and at least hit the thumbs up button for me. That's the least you could do, is smash the like button for me right now. Everybody pause, freeze, and just smash that like button for me if you can. I really would appreciate it. Somebody said, I remember Carlton Sheets. I'm just reading through some of the comments, see if there's a question. If you got a question, drop it for me. I will answer it, okay? Hey, greetings back to you. Mrs. Moore is in the house. Thank you, Mrs. Moore, for being here. Please like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much, Mrs. Moore. I know I don't get on here and do lives like I used to. I used to do 2 lives a week for like a year or so. Somebody said, what's my investing style like with stock market investing? I use like the core satellite strategy, whereas my core is mostly ETFs and index funds. And then on the peripheral, I do have a little bit of individual stocks, but I would say, let me say this, out of my entire net worth, only about, what is this about? Let me see. Only about 30% of my net worth is in real estate. So the other 70% is equities, right? And of that 70% that's equities, I would say 95 to 98% of it is ETFs and index funds. Only a tiny percentage of my portfolio is individual stocks. So the core is real estate and ETFs and index funds, and the peripheral is the satellites are individual stocks. I got a small individual stock portfolio that I manage. Let's say, huge fan of your content. Thank you so much. Talk to Sierra. Reached 106,000 last week through my investments. Congratulations to you. That's a big thing. Listen, when your investments get to 100,000, keep doing what you're doing. Don't waver. Don't get fancy. You don't have to. Just keep doing. Compound interest is a beast. I'm telling you. When your investments get up to $800,000-$900,000 in a matter of a month, you could pick up $20,000, $30,000. In a matter of a month, you could lose $20,000 or $30,000 as your money goes up. But just stay patient. Keep doing what you're doing as your money grows up. Compound interest don't look like a lot when you got $30,000, but when you get $300,000, it makes a big difference, right? Somebody said I still use notebooks. I'm just looking through a few of the comments right now, guys. Let's see if there's a question for me. Welcome to Circuit City, where service is a state of art. Yeah, Circuit City. Those were the days, right? Best Buy. We were big. We were big competitors with Best Buy back in the days. Circuit City was one of those things you had to order your stuff. You know, you see the display, you order it, then we go to the back and get it for you and all that, and have it for you at the front. You know, it was different. Do I use creative financing for my rental properties? No, not anymore. I may buy some more rental property in a little bit, but um, of course, it's an asset going up in value. Somebody say, "Love your work." Thank you so much. I appreciate that. This says Dakeen 1121. You have the best. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I try to have good advice because I try to stay in my lane. Like, my lane is not, trading options, right? So I don't want to come on here and tell you a bunch of stuff about calls and puts because I don't really trade calls and puts, right? I don't have a margin account at Fidelity. So I don't want to come on here and give you a bunch of stuff about a margin account. I just don't have it, right? I don't do Forex. I don't do a lot of crypto. I think I got $1,000 worth of crypto and it's mostly Ethereum. So I don't talk about stuff that I don't know. Credit cards are good for the right people and terrible for the wrong people. Yeah, I'm not a guy that's totally against credit cards. For me, not a good idea. For most people, probably not a good idea because most people aren't as disciplined as they should be to use a credit card. And I don't like putting anything on credit. I've used debit cards or cash for years, and it's worked out just fine. Anybody that tells you got to have a credit card, no, you don't. Not true. That's a myth. Tithe 10%, absolutely. I agree with. I'm a big giver and tither, and not just tithing, but giving to people that need help. Right? It may just be leaving a big tip, or it may just be saying, okay, somebody needs some help with their rent. Somebody, a single mom or single dad. Listen, it's not just about tithing, but it's about giving and helping other people that need the most help. I'm all about that, and I think I've been doing that since 2001, 2002, and I think that's been a big part of my growth in terms of my personal finances. Understanding that if I set my cup right next to you and I pour into your cup, and your cup fills over, ultimately my cup sitting right next to you is going to fill over also. So just a big believer in helping and giving to other people. Please do share it with your nephew. Share it with young people. This is the type of information they need to see. Somebody that's not out here trying to be flashy, not out here trying to drive the latest, I don't even know what the latest fancy cars are, right? Bentley, I think Bentley or Bugatti is a fancy car, right? I'm not out here doing all that. There's no bling bling. It's just a hardworking guy trying to help as many people as possible. And I don't say that for accolades. I just say that to say that's who I am and what it comes across. Montero Bay, California in the house. Good to have you here. Let's see. Real estate moving forward through tough times. Thank you for the super chat. Platinum Man channel. Thank you so much. Left field idea. I want to buy Spirit Airline stock. That's a pretty left field idea because they just folded, right? Okay. Well, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. How do you recommend going about real estate the right way? Have money. Great question, Nia Jones. Have money. I know there's a big old talk out here about, listen, on my channel, I don't do real estate anymore, but I got 100 videos in a playlist on YouTube about real estate. Have money. Be careful going into deals about real estate with no money down and no money for repairs and maintenance, etc. Have some cash when you get into real estate. That's one of the most important things you can have. Have a system, have some cash, and be thick-skinned, because one day you might have to have a conversation with a single mom of 4 who has no job, lost her job, single mom of 4 little babies, and you got to go in there and talk to her and say, look, maybe this is not the right thing for you. I had a tenant. Let me tell you this story real quick. It's going to be really quick because I don't want to dig into it. I had a tenant who lost a child while they were in my property. They lost a child. I don't want to bring the conversation down and down low, but I'm just saying it was a tough, and the property was trashed. I mean, trashed. And they had lost a child, and I said child, a teenager. right? That's a hard conversation. If you're not ready for hard conversations, maybe you don't need to own single family homes, or you may want to get a property manager, right? Um, but you got to have thick skin when you're a landlord or when you're a property owner and you're renting out property, whether it's commercial, or whether it's single family, right? So everybody's not cut out to be a property owner that rents their property. But do it the right way. Have some cash. Have some systems in place. Learn. Go to your local real estate meetups and start learning and talking to other investors that are investing in the areas where you want to invest in. Start having conversations so you can learn from the people who have the 30 and 40 and $50 or 50 unit portfolios. They got 100 doors and they got some stuff to say that you need to listen to and pay attention to. You can learn a lot from a long time landlord for sure. Let's see here. Done. Great channel. Appreciate you being here authentically myself. It does make me mad that I have mismanaged my life wrongfully. Hey, don't beat yourself up, right? Don't live in the past. The past is the past. You can't do anything about the past, but you can do almost everything about the future, right? I won't say everything, but you don't know what the future holds, but you can plan the future out. You can sort of steer the future, right? Thanks for the thumbs up. Erica Malone, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I think I know you. Thank you so much for showing up. I appreciate it. What's your thoughts on investing in real estate today? I think it's okay. Nothing wrong with it. Real estate is a long game, though. Okay. There's a lot of real estate questions. Real estate is a long game, right? Building wealth for the future, and how would you purchase? There's so many ways to purchase and so many types of things you can purchase. What I would purchase in real estate would depend on what is going on in my personal finances. That makes a difference, right? If you're struggling in your personal finances, you may want to slow down on the risk of a 10 unit multifamily property, right? You may want to start. One of the great ways to start in real estate is buy a duplex, live on the other side. Do that, live there 2 years, 3 years, build up cash while you're doing that. And then the next one, go buy another duplex, live on that side. Keep the old duplex as a piece of rental property. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But again, it's a slow go. You do that 5 times in 10 years, you got 10 doors, right? Okay, so that would be one way to do it. Lots of ways to do it. Do I have a video on money management? Yes. You can watch any of the videos I have on YouTube. They're all about money management. Do you think it's worth going into real estate with today's prices? Yes. Yes. Please consider diversifying into real estate. Let's see. The first million takes the longest. I can tell you with certainty that's 100% true, right? I did videos on YouTube when we went over the $1 million mark back in 2022, 2021, 2022, and that took 30 years. That took 20. No, I'm sorry, took 20, little over 20 years. And now we're bumping on the next goal, and it hasn't taken nowhere near that. So keep doing the same one thing that you guys. Yep. Hi, thank you so much for your content. Appreciate you being here. Keita Goody, I think that's it. Let's see here. Listen to somebody else listened to Carlton Sheets back in the days. So we got some folks in here that remember Carlton Sheets. I don't know what happened to him. I think he passed away. Are you investing in the AI sector or leveraging AI? Yes, I have some technology, absolutely, data centers and things like that. I did a lot of videos on this channel on YouTube about NVIDIA. I even did videos back when I said, is Palantir the next NVIDIA? I remember doing a video about that back in when Palantir was trading at like $12, $15 a share, right? So yeah, I definitely have some individual stocks, and I have some technology and AI. Some of my technology does leak over into specifically AI and data centers. Absolutely. Circuit City almost every time. Let me see if I can catch up. How do you feel about reducing or minimizing taxes on the wealthy? When you say minimizing, reducing or minimizing taxes on the wealthy, I don't know. I haven't thought long enough. I don't have a real strong position one way or the other on taxes on the wealthy. Um, but I'm a capitalist, and I am 100% not a socialist. I am a capitalist. I don't like the idea of communism, socialism, Marxism. No, I don't like that. I can tell you with certainty. Did a video about that, about why capitalism is good, and instead of bashing capitalism, it has its bad, it has its good, but we live in a capitalistic society. And so, therefore, instead of complaining about the game, let's participate in the game, right? Instead of saying, "Oh, the little man will never get ahead." Stop being a little man. Okay, and I can go on for days about that, but and I don't mean to step on toes, but it's how I really believe about that. Um, let's see. I don't blame you, smart money, bro. ETFs are a smart way to go. Appreciate that. Do you invest in silver or gold? No. Don't own any silver. Don't own any gold yet. Okay, and I say yet because as my net worth grows, there's some areas that I'm looking to maybe get into, and it may be a little bit insurance. And I like to say gold is insurance, right? I don't look at gold as a true investment because it doesn't behave like the investments that we know of behave, right? And I can't go to the store and buy a car in gold, right? Hey, you know what? Let me get that 2027 Camry for $45,000. Here's a bar of gold. They're not going to take that. So I don't look at it as a true investment. Of course, I could cash it in for gold, but I look at it as insurance. If everything goes crazy in America and around the world, you still have some gold as insurance. So there might be a time where I go ahead and put a little bit of that into my investments. But right now, no gold, no silver. Let's see here. What are the benefits of setting up a trust? Well, you always want to set up a trust. A trust is going to typically, if it's set up properly, it will allow you to bypass probate, where your state comes in and dictates everything. The beauty about a trust is that you get a chance to control your money, right? And you get a chance to set up for some things when, a part of a trust is your healthcare directive, your will is a part of your trust, and you get a chance to set some things up when you may be incapacitated. So I like a trust. There's many different types of trust besides revocable and irrevocable, right? There's legacy trust and there's trust for children. There's all different types of trust. So I would definitely say that if you're dealing with $50,000 of a net worth, you probably need a trust. Okay. Somebody said Susie Orman loves trust. Let's see. Listening from Scotland. Wow, Maximum. Good to have you all the way from Scotland. Lou is in Brooklyn, one of the 5 boroughs. All right. BK is the Bronx. Boogie Down. No, Boogie Down is the Bronx. BK is Brooklyn, I think. Let's see. How do you handle people that don't believe in having a budget but complain about your low key lifestyle budget? Um, I think a budget is very important. It's very necessary. I see YouTube channels all the time that say things like, you don't need a budget. Or, I don't believe that because a budget has served me well and it's taken me from really nothing to something. So I'm all about budgeting. I think it's very important. And guess what? I've talked to close to 600 people. I do one-on-one personal financial mentoring and coaching. I've talked to I've talked to more than 600 people, and I would say 95% of them don't do a budget. I know what the numbers say, right? But so look, guys, I wanted to come on here and give you my story. And this is my story, okay? I don't talk about it much because I try to help people as much as possible. And I realize that sometimes your story can help others. And when somebody said, what platform do I use? A platform for investing. I got an account at Schwab. I got an account at Moomoo. I like Moomoo, real solid. I got an account at Fidelity. I also have an account at Vanguard. So I use a lot of them. Yes, please remember to hit the like button for me, guys. That's the least you can do with me, for me being transparent, for me giving all this information to you. Smash the like button and share this information with other people, somebody else. Now, guess what? Right now, I'm about to head over to Patreon, right? Again, I didn't want to tell you my story to brag, but you needed to know that I didn't come from wealth. I didn't start early. I didn't have any special advantages. I didn't make a bunch of money. In fact, I only made 6 figures up until I didn't make 6 figures till, like I said, 6-7 years ago. But I believed, right? It just took a little bit of this is what it took over time. But I'm about to head over. I want to invite you guys over to my Patreon. You can sign up for my Patreon for free, or you can join one of the 2 tiers that I have over on Patreon. Okay? So You can come over on Patreon. We talk more about investing. We dig deeper into multiplying your money in terms of the stock market, ETFs, index funds, individual stocks. Right now, we're doing a series on the 8 golden rules of intelligent investing. Today, every week we take one of them. Today is rule number 5, which is diversification. So I told him I'd be over there at 7, but it'll be more like 7:05, right? So I also have a free, if you come over to YouTube, I got a free ebook called The 24 Laws of Money. That's linked in the YouTube. I also have my 4-step financial reset. We get started on June 16th. Let me tell you about the reset real quick. The reset is a course that you take whenever you want to take. It's got a 100-page workbook. It's got 16 fillable worksheets and handouts. It's got 3.5, 4 hours worth of instruction. And we do 3 live group coaching sessions through the month. So we start every Monday, starting, I think, in about 2 weeks in the middle of June. So you can enroll in that as well. It's all of that. You get all of that. The individual, or not the individual, but the group coaching. That's 90 minutes for 3 Mondays of the month. Plus you get, and that's where I come on here live and talk, and we have conversations, and we help you with because personal finance is personal. Everybody's situation is slightly different. So we do that 4-step financial reset. There's a link to that in the YouTube as well. Right? I hope you got some value from this video. And thank you so much, Mrs. Moore, for helping me in the chat as always. If you got value, just leave me a comment that says I got value. If you're on LinkedIn or Facebook, I appreciate you being here. If you're over here from YouTube, I appreciate you being here on the live. Right? You guys are wonderful. I appreciate you more than you know. If you think I need to come on and do more of these lives, put that in the comments section after this video goes live on YouTube in about 3 minutes. Just say, hey, yeah, I like this live. Let's do more lives. I don't do them as much anymore, but just let me know. Right? Yes. Yes. I'm just looking at some of the comments. I didn't get to all of them. I apologize, but I appreciate you guys being here. Don't forget to share the information. And thank you so much. As always, the absolute best person who's going to take care of that old you is the young you. Until the next video, peace.